A lot of people are asking questions about the stimulus package and how it's going to benefit individuals and businesses. And so I just got done hosting a Q&A webinar with the director of the SBA. We got a lot of awesome questions answered. So check out the link for really great information.
Application. You have to assume that about 24 million small business will be applying, and all the loans go to one single office. So you imagine what the queue looks like. So when you're in a queue, you're not going to get a check because nobody knows nothing. But once that loan package is submitted to an underwriter, the first thing they will do is to ask the Treasury to send you a check. Now they look at your application, you are denied, you still keep that check. And you may say, but that's impossible. Yes, it is possible. The government wants to put money in the marketplace. Things are not going too well. So Washington is dying to put money for up to $10 million. The loan is 100% guaranteed by the full faith and good credit of the United States.
So you talked to us about the two programs. Can somebody apply for both?
Absolutely.
I'm going to make numbers up here. You could potentially get $1 million for economic injury for working capital, and then you can get another 1 million for the PPP program.
And that 1 million, let us suppose it's just for payroll, that's going to be forgiven. It's only difference, they're going to be talking to each other. Okay. So if you try to apply for the same thing in both programs, it's not going to work. Okay. Because you apply for 100,000 as an example with the bank will consult with SBA. If you had applied 100,000 and luckily, you had received your money already, you're not going to receive another 100,000 from the bank if it was for the same thing.
For the same thing. But you could potentially get, I'm going to make numbers up here. You could potentially get $1 million for economic injury for working capital, and then you can get another 1 million for the PPP program.
And that 1 million, let us suppose it's just for payroll, that's going to be forgiven in its entirety. So that would be perfect.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so before we get to Mr. Jeff Lozama, I also want to make note that we have Madame Paola Pierre that's on. She's the Haitian American Chamber of Commerce of Florida chairwoman. And it was very important for me to have her here because, as you know, there's a lot of underserved communities that will not be able to fully take part in these programs. And one of them will be the Haitian community. So I'm happy that she's here because our intent will be to make sure that that community is fully aware of these programs. Do you think that at some point, if it gets too complicated and there's too much of a bottleneck and people are not getting their money, do you think at some point it's a possibility that the government could say, you know what, these banks, Wells Fargo, Bank United, Bank of America, all the big guys, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to do this. Could that happen? I know we're in unprecedented times, but could that happen if people, it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks and nothing is moving?
The Small Business Administration is probably one of the smallest agencies in the federal government, but with the widest mandate in that they represent and the advocate and champion of the 30 million small businesses of the United States. And we have offices all over the country, of course. And we happen to have 2 offices in Florida, one in Miami and one in Jacksonville. And I'm saying that because after the disaster is over, if you're a small business owner and you need assistance, I want you to know that we're also here for you. And Miami happens to be one of the most productive offices in terms of lending. They do about over $1.5 billion in lending year after year. They have the largest portfolio of the AA firm in the United States. So all that to say that you're in good hands as a small business owner, and the chair of the Small Business Committee in the Senate happens to be in your market. It's Rubio. You have an issue with small business, you have a problem with government or whatever, you can always go to Rubio to help you out, count and apply.
Okay, one second, Mr. Osten. So let me just let's take a step back and talk about there's two programs, right?
Yes,
There's one program administered directly by the SBA, and there's another program administered directly by the bank. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
So the very first one is the Economic Injury Loan Program that is administered by the SBA. And I like to let you know a little bit about giving you the facts. So the loan is up to $2 million. The interest rate on that loan is 3.75%. If you're a private not-for-profit, the interest is 2.75%. The terms of the loan is 30 years to repay that debt. And there is a year deferment. So when you get your loan, you do not have to start paying that debt until a year after. You only pay the interest for a year.
Okay, I'm just going to repeat slowly so that everybody understands and has the time to take notes. And you just let me know if I missed anything. So again, I'm going to repeat, there's two programs, two programs, one administered by the SBA, one administered by the bank. The one that you're talking about right now is the one administered by the SBA called the Economic Injury Loan.
Correct.
You can get up to $2 million for that particular loan. So when you apply online, so for this particular loan, the Economic Injury Loan, you go to the SBA.gov and you apply for that. And subsequently, you will receive a $1,000 advance. Is that automatic for everybody?
It is automatic for everybody once you fill out that part of the application, and that part was not available until last Monday. So if someone had already applied, they can always go back to the new application, give their reference number, and just go straight to that has to do with the bank. And
that $10,000 we can consider that as a grant. You will not need to reimburse. And that $10,000 we can consider that as a grant. You will not need to reimburse that $10,000.
Now the underwriter looks at the application, looks at it, and determine an amount. On that amount, into closing, you can also argue with the underwriter, but let's say you agree, that money minus the $10,000 will be deposited to your account.
Is there negotiation that can happen at that moment in time?
Correct. So finally, your application is approved. Someone will be able, the underwriter that is, will be able to give you a call. Probably the first time you get a call from our office, or a lot of emails, congratulations, you've been approved. So it's almost a closing where negotiation can take place. They have determined you should be getting $40,000, but you need $60,000 to carry you for the next couple of months. So that can be argued. So there is a little bit of negotiation.
Okay.
But once that ends, the closing can be done over the phone. Then the funds are deposited in your account. 1 year, you don't have to repay. There is a deferment of a year, and the terms are 30 years. So if you want to extend it on a small loan where you're paying maybe $50 a month for 10 years, who wants that, right? But you have 10 years.
And then we can go back. So first, this was the Economic Injury Loan Program. Again, people go to SBA.gov to apply for it. Everybody gets an automatic $10,000. You don't have to repay it. Once they call you and you want to start, negotiating for more, you can. The max that any small business can receive is $2 million. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Next program, if you want to talk about the next program that is administered directly at the local banks.
That's correct, Tamara. The other program is known as the 3 Ps, PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. So it's an interesting program. You can apply. You have to go to your bank account to apply. You no longer apply with the SBA, even though on the SBA's website, there is an initial application that you want to fill out. You can take that application to your bank, and the bank may say, I have sufficient information. You don't have to do mine over. Or the bank will give you their own application, which probably is similar to ours. So you can actually go on our site, or the treasury.gov, even better. They have a lot of updated information. You can pull that application, make a copy, fill it out. Monday morning, you take it to your bank, an account. Important, the word account. No bank, no bank. If you don't have an account with a bank or a relationship, you're going to be wasting your time. Apply for up to $10 million. The loan is 100% guaranteed by the full faith and good credit of the United States. Requirement, no personal guarantee requirement. It's an interesting one. You get a deferment of 6 months after you get the loan. They were already at $10 billion in submission, not in approval, but application that they had received for their customers, from their customers. So the program is moving only because on Monday morning, he went to the bank, he applied, and basically he could not believe the process. I think they just tell him the application, they're going to change it, they're going to put the name of his bank on it, but it's very much like the SBA application. He couldn't believe how short it was to be filled out. And he went through the process because remember, a large portion of that loan will be considered a grant. It will be forgiven. So remember, the intent of this loan is to put money in your hands so you can retain your employees. So think of a business who is about to let go their employees, they can apply for the loan, and most of that loan will be forgiven. There is a portion that is strictly for payroll, and anything associated with payroll would be retirement. If you pay retirement or part retirement for your employees, if you pay insurance for your employees, all these costs can be considered payroll costs. And almost all of it will be forgiven. But if you have other expenses, such as your mortgage, your rent, and other things, I would recommend that you apply for the other program better. So, no collateral requirement, no personal guarantee requirement. It's an interesting one. You get a deferment of 6 months after you get the loan. And Bank of America here, I think they have branches everywhere. They were already at $10 billion in submission, not in approval, but application that they had received for their customers. Only because on Monday morning, he went to the bank, he applied, and basically he could not believe the process. I think they just tell him the application, they're going to change it, they're going to put the name of his bank on it, but it's very much like the SBA application. He couldn't believe how short it was to be filled out. And he went through the process because remember, a large portion of that loan will be considered a grant. It will be forgiven. So remember, the intent of this loan is to put money in your hands so you can retain your employees. So think of a business who is about to let go their employees, they can apply for the loan, and most of that loan will be forgiven. There is a portion that is strictly for payroll, and anything associated with payroll would be retirement. If you pay retirement or part retirement for your employees, if you pay insurance for your employees, all these costs can be considered payroll costs. And almost all of it will be forgiven. But if you have other expenses, such as your mortgage, your rent, and other things, I would recommend that you apply for the other
potentially
program.
I'm going to make numbers up here. You could potentially get $1 million for economic injury for working capital, and then you can get another 1 million for the PPP program.
And that 1 million, let us suppose it's just for payroll, that's going to be forgiven in its entirety. So that would be perfect.
What you say is 100% correct. It doesn't matter how much money you have at Bank of America. If you don't have a relationship as far loans with them, they do not take your application for some reason. I just don't know why. But since I have other relationships for the bank, I was able to go swiftly and go with them, and I was able to fill my application without any issue.
Now, Herbert, okay, great. Any other questions?
Tamara, can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Okay. What if you're not impacted by this virus? And I'll even talk about my own situation. I'm busier than ever. I'm a CPA, so I'm working now this time of year anyway. This creates more work, and I've had a lot of just good things that happened in the last 2 months where I'm not impacted whatsoever. I mean, I can't go to happy hour, which that's the only thing that's really bothering me, which is a joke, by the way. But what? And then people say, well, why don't you apply for that $10,000? And right away, they'll send it to you. Just send the application. I don't, isn't this for if you're not impacted, you're really not supposed to be applying, correct? I mean, that's a general rule.
I mean, it's a matter of conscience, Steve. I mean, why would you apply for something that you feel, you shouldn't be? Like your position, you're in a better position. The coronavirus affected almost everybody, but there is a handful of industries that were not affected. It works best for you because you get the customers. Now, if somebody can argue, come on, Steve, you still can argue, and you start thinking,
it's not only somebody, it's everybody. I mean, everybody's just kind of said, oh, just apply. I go, well, I mean, that's really not what it's for. But I know you see this all the time, but they're going to get tons of applications that may or may not. I don't know if they're going to. I don't know how they're going to underwrite it and qualify it, but I would imagine they got a tough job to make that assessment.
Yeah, in your case, it would be an easy assessment to make because the job program is designed for people who are affected and who can prove to the numbers. Up to January, my sales were 100,000. Coronavirus come, my sales are now 20,000. And you can back it up with documents if required.
Right, but I could apply for that I could apply for the SBA loan and get 10 grand up front. My application gets denied. I don't have to pay it back. That
is the beautiful part of it. But with your conscience, Steve, you got to live with it.
Yes.
Right. Other people could have used the money, not you, Steve. So
correct.
Yes,
I agree.
Denied because you are ineligible to begin with. You get $10,000 that you really don't need, and you're going to live with it for the next 30, 40 years,
I'm not disagreeing with you. That's why I'm bringing it up.
I know people who have no conscience, and who say, well, I'm going to apply. I said to a gentleman earlier today, you have a church, you're not eligible. He says, but about the 10,000. I said, well, you can apply. I bet you get it, but you're going to be living with your conscience, knowing that I told you, you're not eligible to apply. And somebody's going to be looking at that application a little bit more carefully, Steve. They're going to tell you, Steve, you are ineligible to begin with. And maybe they can pull that application on the side. You never know what happens. Somebody calls me earlier, what if I take the money from the government? Since there is no collateral requirement, so they don't have my collateral, there is no personal, guarantee requirement. So what if I apply and I don't pay for the loan? And my response was, well, I don't think you want to do that because what you don't know is it never ends. I know people who are still paying debt with the Treasury. Every check that comes in, whether it's your income tax check return, whether it's whatever payment, is garnished forever until you pay that debt. So it's hard to try to cheat the government, that way. But that would be my advice to you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Right. So the issue is this is a government program. So one of the things, and again, I work for another a super regional bank. We're launching this program actually this week. And one of the things we're telling our clients is a couple of things. One, to everybody's point, this is, the banks are really prioritizing their clients. So if there's any money left, then after that, if somebody comes in and asks, maybe, but the priority are the bank's clients. End of story. Two, this is all online. You may not get requests for documentation now, but it's going to come back. They're going to come back and ask you for documentation. So your documentation needs to be in order. Three, and this is very important, at some point in time, there may be audits. This is a federal government program. they're going to go back and check. And if there's any fraud, like anything else, the government will find out and they will confiscate, they will get their money back. So people definitely need to be careful with applying and just making sure that everything is legit, your documentation is in place, and you have no problem. And fourth and finally, one of the things we're telling our clients, this is creating a little bit of a cottage industry of people who are telling businesses they can help them. Some of it is fraudulent, and this is one of the things we have to be careful with, and we're prepared to tell our members, like when they don't apply to the Bank of America's, be careful, because there are going to be people out there telling them, oh, yeah, I can get you the money, but you got to pay me $2,400. Today, I heard somebody today that they're charging their customers $2,500 to help them with some of the applications. So these are some of the things that, I also sit on the board of the Haitian American Chamber of Commerce, and these are some of the pointers and advice that we're giving our members to be careful of, because after this, there's going to be some consequences.
Yeah. What do you have to say about that, Herbert? About people?
Good advice. I was talking about conscience, but that's even better, because eventually they're going to pull files. Well, the FDIC will come after the bank in a way, take a look at the files, because they're taking absolutely no risk. So they can actually approve any loans that they want for any amount that they want, because they have no skin in this game at all. Normally the SBA requires that they pay a fee for a loan. SBA is forgiving that. So the bank has absolutely not a penny to spend on this loan. They're going to be collecting money on the contrary. So they may make mistake. They may decide, I'm going to let that application go through because, it's not my problem. But when the regulators come in and look afterwards, and I'm sure that's going to happen eventually, you don't want to be caught in that process.
And I want to say too that I saw, Herbert, that in the literature that I've been reading, that if you do help because some customers are going to need help, some clients are going to need help, some clients are going to be very confused with all of the language, even though it might be easy to go through. I did read somewhere that you can be an agent for a customer to help them fill out the application. And the agent is the list of who an agent can be is very specific. An attorney, an accountant, an officer of the company. There's that's not getting paid by the company right now. There's different requirements, but those agents can get paid by the bank once the loan gets approved. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I do. And you're way ahead of the curve always, as always, Tammy. And the list, that's what the list read that way. Who can be an agent? An agent is an authorized representative and can be an attorney, an accountant, a consultant, someone who prepares an applicant's application for financial assistance and is employed and compensated by the applicant, someone who assists a lender with originating, disbursing, servicing, liquidating, or litigating SBA loans, a loan broker, or any other individual entity representing an
Somebody
applicant.
needs to put their phone on mute, please.
And an agent fee will be paid out of lender fee. Lender will pay the agent, and agent may not collect any fee from the applicant. So the bank will pay the fee. Yes, you're right.
So if we know that, I think it's our responsibility for the leaders in the community, in all the communities, to say to people that might say, wow, I need help, to say, don't worry, the bank will pay the agent.
Correct.
So that we can eliminate the fraud right from the beginning.
That's correct.
Yeah, Tamara, it's Dell again. So what will happen there is it's going to be with the non-traditional lenders for the SBA, because all the major bank, like Jean-Bélizia just said, his bank, my bank, we are not going to pay agents to help clients to fill out those. It's just that the way that the banks are structured. So it's going to have to be non-traditional lenders, and at the chamber, we need to find out who those will be so they can assist our clients, but don't expect that the fees that the major banks are collected, that's going to be paid any agent, because that's just not part of their process.
Good to know. That's good to know.
And you can find out from the Miami office or the Jacksonville office, the new banks coming into the program who've never done an SBA loans and who are going to need help with agents and who are willing to pay the agent as well.
Do you think that at some point, if it gets too complicated and there's too much of a bottleneck and people are not getting their money, do you think at some point it's a possibility that the government could say, you know what, these banks, Wells Fargo, Bank United, Bank of America, all the big guys, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to do this. Could that happen? I know we're in unprecedented times, but could that happen if people, it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks and nothing is. Do you think that at some point, if it gets too complicated and there's too much of a bottleneck and people are not getting their money, do you think at some point it's a possibility that the government could say, you know what, these banks, Wells Fargo, Bank United, Bank of America, all the big guys, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to do this. Could that happen? I know we're in unprecedented times, but could that happen if people, it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks and nothing is moving?
It's interesting conversation I had with the media yesterday. So I told them when they were complaining, Washington has to do something, and I said, one thing to keep in mind, these banks are private sector banks. We see those very powerful board of directors and that sort of thing. If we start to meddle with private sector, suddenly we become what you so-called a socialist country, right? Like, people will start to argue, okay, what's this? The government is controlling everything we're doing. We have the right to have our own standard operating procedure and say, well, we're not going to make loans to anybody. I see that the right way. I mean, I know businesses will be affected by it, but every bank has the right to make their own decision. Right now, we have 1,800 banks, I said, who are trying to join in, who never wanted to touch government. They would prefer to turn down your loan instead of considering a guarantee from the government. Just imagine. But those are the decision of the executive of the bank. I don't want to participate in SBA program, right? So I don't know how much, if they can put pressure on these banks. I know that I am required to provide lists of banks when a client calls to say, I cannot get a loan with my bank even though I have a 17 years relationship. We will be providing the names of this bank. I already have a list of 2. Hopefully at some point, every district office and 68 of us start to have lists. I'm very sure the treasurer and the president will have a meeting with these banks and say, guys, you have to be, that's the way I put it, maybe because I'm Haitian, I have a heart. I've been saying to banks, you have to be morally responsible. You have to be, socially responsible. You are obligated to some extent to help people in this phase of their business. The calls I'm hearing is, if you don't help me today, I'm going to shut down my business. It makes you want to cry for the small businesses, especially in the restaurant business. You're hearing people calling, not the owner, but somebody calling on their behalf. They have lost all strength. They cannot even make a call. And for them to know that they can walk to a bank, for the bank to say, you know what, I know you have a deposit relationship with me, but I cannot make a loan to you. I think that is so sad from my perspective at least.
So once you have that loan, you have till June 30th to just take a look at 8 weeks of your payroll. So what's the equivalent of those 8 weeks is, and we will compare that to the loan size that we give you. The size of the 8 weeks will be automatically forgiven. So that's the way that the approach is. There will be, if there is something that's left over, then we amortize that at 1% over the remaining 2 years. So that's what.
There's also another factor that you need to bring to the table is the fact that even after that 8 weeks of period has expired, and assuming that you kept your employees, you didn't fire anybody, you still have to go and show and prove to the bank or maybe to SBA or whomever that you have used those funds appropriately. So there is a second phase of actually doing an application to prove that you've used those money before they will be forgiven.
That's absolutely correct. And hopefully some of the questions that we got, well, what if we had laid off people? Can we bring them back so we can hire them and keep them under that payroll? And the Act has provided for that in terms of rehiring. So yeah, there is a little bit of calculation and planning that takes place there before you size up the loan and see how much will be forgiven. But it is expected at least 75%, if you do everything right, 75% of the loan that you take on the front end will be forgiven.
Del, I have a question. So before, when we first started talking, we said that at some point you can go to the banker and say, hey, banker, I need more than this. And so assuming, just giving an example, assuming that the business did not apply for the economic injury loan and only applied for the PPP, is there going to be a point where I can go to you as my banker and say, thank you for the 8 weeks of payroll, but I also need a little bit more for working capital? Will that opportunity take place at a large institution for the PPP program?
And to clarify, Tammy, when I said that, I was only talking about the government program.
Which is what, the economic injury?
The economic injury, yeah, where it's a direct loan, where you're talking to an SBA employee, a federal employee, and you're calling them, and there is a little bit of room for negotiation from what
Any other questions before we do a recap? We appreciate the time, but we want to be respectful of Herbert's time as well and everybody else's time. Is there any other questions?
But you know, Herbert, just a quick follow-up. Any indication as to how long before those applicants who submitted, let's say a few days or a week prior to signing the bill, do you know where they are in the pipeline?
Yeah, and my best way to explain that, so you can, as you talk to other folks, you explain them. My office has never been engaged in a disaster program. We have two SBA network. We have two organizations. One is the disaster. One is the district office. We do totally separate things. So now that they have a national disaster, the disaster office only has 4 offices. We have 68 of them. So they thought we ought to be the office marketing the program. But a lot of, once you put in your application, we lose complete control. We don't ask questions either, so we don't know. But what I'm supposing is happening, that's what I tell people who call. I'm just telling, that's what I'm thinking. It may be wrong, because I'm not that smart, right? So I anticipate that 22 to 24 million people will be applying. I'm anticipating that. So it goes in one office, by the way, all the application. One site, right? So I can imagine the person who puts an application Monday expecting an answer in 3 days. And it's impossible because you're just on a queue and no one has seen that application yet to be underwritten. Now people say, but I put my application, I don't get my money yet. Well, you cannot get the money when no one has seen your application. You don't exist yet. So that's the problem, I think, with this, because, you know, we never had that. We always have disasters, a couple of tornadoes here, earthquake in other district offices, and those were more manageable. Harvey, I'll give you an idea. Harvey, which was very centralized in one location, and you had 350,000 applications just for that location. You imagine now it's the entire country. And it's the same little office who has to do all the processing. They're trying to hire people, they can't find people because of the coronavirus. So anyway, I think it's going to, what we're saying to people in a regular disaster, natural disaster, it's about 2 weeks before your application gets in the hands of a person who will look at it and spend another week on it. Now I'm saying 3 to 4 weeks before you even hear anything about the SBA. That they receive. I am in receipt of your application. I'm going to be your case worker. Your application is in the hands of so-and-so. They have 24 hours to approve it or disapprove it. So then once you start getting those calls, you know your application is in good hands. But now it's just
Okay.
you. Yeah.
And that's for the economic injury loan. That is not for the PPP.
Yes. No. The PPP, the treasurer has made it clear. I want those loans to be made in one day. Again, I don't see it being possible because of the volume.
Right.
But that's what they want.
Okay. All right. Well, I think this was amazing. I really, really appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody that came on. I just want to do a quick recap and then we can sign off. Again, thank you so much, Herbert. Thank you, Paola. Thank you, everybody, for coming on. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing your story of the application. So there is 2 programs. One is called the Economic Injury Loan Program. That is directly on the SBA website, sba.gov. That program allows for a loan up to $2 million per company, 3.75 interest rate for for-profit company, and a 2.75 interest rate for a non-for-profit company. 30-year loan. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. This has nothing to do with the PPP program. It's a different program. The PPP program is $10 million, up to $10 million per company. You have to go to a bank. Your bank, you have to have a relationship with the bank. If you do not have a relationship with the bank, most likely you'll have to go to another financial institution. The list is on the SBA website. It's also on the Treasury website because I've looked at it on the Treasury website. That one is a 2-year maturity. 75% of it will be most likely forgiven if you use it for the intent, which is for payroll, utilities, and rent. And the one thing that I just want to repeat to make sure everybody gets this is that they're separate programs. You can apply for both. You can get money from both. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And getting money from PPP does not prevent you or put you in a situation where you cannot apply for economic injury. They will, however, speak to each other to analyze the amount of the loan. Is that correct?
They will to see whether you're applying for the same thing on both loans.
Okay,
so if you're applying for the same thing, it's not going to work.
Okay. It won't work, but you won't be denied. They'll just talk to you and say you can't do this.
Exactly. They will tell you, the bank will say, okay, you have to deduct the amount that has already been given to you for payroll purposes. But if you apply for a separate thing, the working capital that you mentioned,
right,
to cover the costs, that's a perfect scenario.
And the disaster and the economic injury is what everybody's referring to as a disaster loan. Is that correct?
That's it's called the economic injury disaster loan, IDA loan.
Perfect. Okay, well, I'm good. I hope this was helpful for everybody here. I really, really am grateful for you, Herbert, for taking the time on a Saturday. Thank you, Del, for chiming in as a banker. Thank you, everybody.